Hello, peeps. I'm your host, Tajiria, and welcome back to another Wednesday afternoon of your favorite TV show, What If? Now, we all know how this works. We ask our viewers for their favorite books, and then we go to the end of the world to get the authors for the books along with the lucky person that selected the book for the episode to review, discuss, and the nail biting segment, which is when the reader will play around with the final chapters, scenario, and change the ending of the book. Now, I must say, last week's episode was very spicy. It had everyone in suspense, waiting for the reader to finish making her what if chapter for the end of that book's episode. But I am telling you all that this week's episode promises to be a much more exciting one. Let me keep you waiting no longer. This book that will be on our episode today, chosen by our lucky guest, is the long awaited The Great Gatsby by the late F. Scott Fitzgerald. Before we jump right in, we must take a second to pay our respects to the late author. However, representing him today are two members from his publishing organization, which were the reviewers of the book before it was launched. If you are a diehard Sid supporter, you would know that we always have our what if person, Danisha, with us on every episode. But unfortunately, she will not be able to make it today, so I will be making her what if approvals. On today's episode, we have here Francine, the lucky viewer that chose the book and was invited to be with us here today. We also have here with us two representatives from Fitzgerald's publishing organization, Tashane and Kadeen, who will be giving us a rundown of how the last chapter actually went originally, as well as telling us a bit more about the reviews from the readers after the book was published. Now, Francine, please be kind enough to tell us why you chose this book for today's episode.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited and happy that my suggestion was chosen. So thank you. So why I chose this book, of course, it is a very fascinating book that has a lot of just unpredictable moments, and it really keeps persons on their feet and just keep you on the edge. So I believe that the book is very popular, and a lot of persons do have their own take and perspective and just how they would like the ending to be. So I chose this book to give my very own opinion and just to see how the viewers react to what I have to say. So thank you.
Okay, no problem. Elated to have you here. And yes, I can attest to that. This book, it's been mentioned so often on our list of books to choose from. Now, seeing that we already have you here, Tassin and Kadeen are representatives from the publishing company of the book, and they are here to give us a summary of what the book actually is like. Take it away, guys.
No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here to talk about one of the legacies of Fitzgerald. Now, The Great Gatsby was written in 1925. The story was told from the point of view of a man named Nick Carraway, who moves to New York, Long Island, to learn more about a business trade when he became neighbors with Jay Gatsby. Now, Jay Gatsby was a mysterious wealthy man who lives in a mansion that shows party every Saturday night. Nick has a cousin living in the area called Daisy Buchanan, and she lives with her husband, Tom, and their child. Through Tom and Daisy, Nick meets a woman called Jordan, whom he ends up having a romantic relationship with. As their relationship progressed, Jordan confided in Nick and told him about Tom's affair that he has with a woman called Myrtle Wilson. Myrtle was also married to a man called George, and she lived in a place called Valley of Ashes with her husband. Tom and Myrtle would go away to the city where they would keep their love affair. Tom decided to bring Nick along on one of his trips, and this is where Nick would get more insights on their relationship. As the summer progressed, Nick was invited by Gatsby to one of his extravagant parties. When Nick arrived at the party, he saw Jordan, whom he gets to learn more about Gatsby through. Gatsby had told Jordan that he knows Daisy from when they were younger and was still very deeply in love with her. Gatsby proceeded to ask Nick to arrange a meeting with Daisy so that he could meet her again. Daisy came to the meeting with Nick, unknowingly that Gatsby was going to be there, but they met and their connection was rekindled. As time passed, Tom grew suspicious of the relationship between Daisy and Gatsby, which was confirmed when they all came together at Tom's and Daisy's house for an event. Now, by this time, Tom was raging with jealousy, which made him force the group to go to the city at a restaurant where a confrontation between Tom, Gatsby, and Daisy occurred, where Daisy was confronted on who she loved more.
Now, let me add to Shane. In the end, Tom was set on the fact that Daisy wasn't going to leave him, but he sent Daisy back home with Gatsby. Upon leaving the restaurant and approaching Valley of Ashes, the trio then came to discover that a woman was killed in a hit and run, and it was Myrtle. Upon talking to George and one man describing the car, they came to realize that it was Gatsby's car. They then rushed back to Long Island, where Gatsby told Nick that Daisy was the one who was driving the car, but he intended to take the blame. George, who was now set on finding his killer's wife, was told by Tom that the car was hit belonged to Gatsby, and George jumped to the conclusion that not only did Gatsby kill his wife, but was the one having an affair with her. George finds Gatsby one day at his home in his pool and shoots him dead, and then he ends up killing himself. After this ordeal, Tom and Daisy left Long Island, and Nick focuses on funeral arrangements for Gatsby. After the funeral, Nick leaves for Long Island. Very interesting.
Wow. Interesting. I can see why this book was definitely a fan's favorite. Okay, seeing that Francine is the fan that the book was from, Francine, tell us what you would change about this book. What's your reason for bringing it on our show, What If?
Okay, so I would change some of the few last chapters, such as 8 and 9. I would change the fact that Gatsby had to die. I would also change the fact that Daisy and Tom got away scot-free with what appears to be no type of penalty for how horrible they were in the book, and also that Myrtle's husband did not have to kill himself. So those would be some of the crucial things that I would change in the book.
That's understandable. That is understandable. All right, so seeing that you have already set your foundation about the things that you would change, now onto the segment that everyone has been waiting for, our What If segments. So you can go ahead and give me your scenarios and I will tell you if they have been approved or denied. Go ahead.
Okay, so excited, literally so excited. So in this What If segment, I would bring my take that between chapters 8 and 9, George Wilson forgets his wallet and then is urged to turn back and fetch it at home. But upon arriving home, at the front of his house, he begins to see with his eyes. I'm sure he was like, my eyes must be failing me, because this can't be so. He sees that his wife is just all cozy with what appears to be Tom. So he then does not confront them the same time or make a scene, but he begins to follow them to this hotel that Tom will normally go with his wife to keep up with this affair. And upon arriving at the hotel, he gives them time to check in and, get a little settled. He then follows them to their room and sees them, yes. So he sees them in compromising positions, and then out of anger, he reaches for his handgun and he shoots them dead, sadly. And floods the scene before anybody, has any realization. So I would definitely change that.
Okay, so Tom and Myrtle end up dead. Well, people end up dead in that segment, but for a valid reason. So I would approve that what if. On to the next.
Okay, so on to the next what if. Yes. I would say, what if Jay Gatsby has a business proposal and proceeds to go to a next city, and upon going to a next city in the country, he finds himself completely immersed in love with an next woman. And with that being said, he is just swept off his feet in love with this woman, and he slowly begins to just let go of this need and want for him and Daisy to be a thing.
Okay. Well, Daisy is a married woman, so Gatsby not feeling that feeling for her anymore, I would have to approve that. Okay, on to the next what if.
Awesome. So the next what if is, what if Daisy is just taken aback that Tom has died and Gatsby has moved on, and realizing that he's actually cheated. She was actually being cheated on with this woman, and it begins to take a toll on her mental health, and she in change has to be a part of a mental health facility. So she clearly has a mental issue. So I would say I would want to see that happen, because Daisy has been atrocious, and we can all attest to this countless times in the book. Girlie has not been being the nicest person on earth, and it can just end with her getting off scot-free, still living in pearls and clicking high heels. I don't think it should end like that. So that's my take.
Well, I agree with that, because why is Daisy in love with two men? Why? And why are you so selfish to not let one of them go? Why were you doing it in the first place? Daisy ending up in a mental institution, I guess I would have to approve that. Okay, so it seems as though our time is running out for this segment, but I must say, this book, it definitely was a hit. I read some reviews on the book, and the book was great. These scenarios, if they were put into place, I see the book still going places. All right, so remember to send in your book choices for next week's episode. Also, send in your comments about what you think about this book. If you agree with Francine about what changes she would make. Yeah, you know how it goes. So, yes, that's the end of this week's episode. I'm your host, Tajiria. Stay tuned. Bye for now.